So Simon, in the book you talk about some of the myths that are sort of put around by people doing presentations. I think one of them that really resonates is that the slides are the presentation. Mm-hmm. And I think we do know people that work very, very hard on the slides, and that's it, isn't it? So can you expand on how do you get around that? And obviously the slides are important, so where's the balance?
Yeah, it's a really difficult thing for people to sort of disengage with. And I think what's happened is over time, PowerPoint, which is the weapon of choice for most people when it comes to presentations, is the first port of call. If somebody's asked to prepare a presentation, the first thing they do is they dive into PowerPoint. What we spend a lot of time speaking to our clients and audiences about is that's not the presentation. The PowerPoint slides are a visual punctuation to your presentation. And guess what? The presentation, that's you. And every time we say this, there will often be a few brave hands that go up saying, yeah, I remember once I was presenting and the projector died. And when that happened, it was the best presentation I ever delivered. And that is a perfect case in point, is PowerPoint slides, visuals are great, but it comes down to you as the presenter to really deliver that presentation. And all that stuff that's happening behind you is merely punctuation to the key points that you're sharing with your audience.
So where do you start? I mean, because for a lot of people, I've got to do a presentation, so they boot up the computer and on comes the PowerPoint slides, and then they're looking, searching Google images, and so if that's not where you start, where do you start?
Always on paper. It's very interesting when people come and visit the studio. They'll remark on how much paper there is because we draw everything. We kind of ideally we storyboard a presentation like you would storyboard a Hollywood movie. If you go back to Disney and the way they storyboarded those cartoons, it's exactly how we try and do that with presentations. Because it's about structure, it's about story, it's about knowing when to play certain visuals to help you get that message across to your audience. If you start on the slide, there are a couple of issues. First thing is that PowerPoint defaults to saying, well, you're doing a presentation, here's a bunch of bullet points, go and fill them up. The other option that people will do is they'll create a Frankenstein's monster of a presentation by going and grabbing bits and pieces from their own library and from colleagues' libraries. And that's not the way to do it. Forget the presentation, go analog right up until the point where you know your story, you know your audience, and you know the message you want to get across to them.
So it seems to me if someone's going to start with because I think PowerPoint gives them a crutch. I go on and there's things to do and there's spaces to fill and whatever else, right. So I can make the slide do something. Yeah. If you start with a blank piece of paper, I can imagine quite a few people kind of freezing in the moment, going, now what? I've got a paper and pen here. So if they start with paper and pen, in the mind, how does it start? Where does it start for them, up here, if they've just got a paper and pen? It's sort of,
before you start drawing out your slides, you need to create the story, what we call the story flow, which is that narrative arc that says, this is how I'm going to, chapter heading wise, tell my story. So at a very, very, very high level, know that actually if I say this element here, introduce this concept here, then I can follow it with that and follow it with that. So super, super high level. But then once you've got that skeleton in place, that's when you can start being a bit more imaginative and visual and creative. And that's the wonderful thing about doing it on paper first of all, is it takes a lot more effort to draw out a bullet point than it does a simple visual that might be as simple as a Venn diagram. A few circles on a slide suddenly gives you real clarity of the message you're looking to get across. And as a visual tool, it's fantastic because it needs you as the presenter to explain what it means to your audience. And that's the mark of a great PowerPoint slide.